Hey, what is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, or to my channel if you're new here. My name is Ivy, and today we are going to be doing, I think it's just called like the book tag. Steph Borer made this as kind of like a I miss tags on YouTube kind of thing, and I thought it was really fun. I also just really like it because it's essentially just a video to talk about your favorite books and like why they're your favorite books. So I just think it's really fun. So let's hop right into it. I will have the questions below, but the first question is a book that you tell people is your favorite. I feel like this is like the book that you love but you know everybody else is gonna love, and that's why you tell people it's your favorite. And for me, that is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I feel like this is... Hello?
Guess what?
What?
Came.
Oh, that's so exciting. If you're gonna show me, do it quick because I'm filming a video. So, the book that I would tell everyone is my favorite is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I feel like this is just such a safe book to tell a lot of people because one, it's really popular so people know it, and two, I just feel like it's like a pretty, not basic, but pretty likable book. I feel like there's not a ton in here that you would hate. But when I read this book, I just remember being so like encapsulated, I don't know if that's the right word, in the story, and I was just like speed reading because I needed to finish it just because I loved the characters so much and I felt like I knew them, like they were real people, like I needed to look up their Instagrams. And I feel like it's really hard to like pick like a favorite book, so I wouldn't say that this is like the book above all books, like it's my absolute favorite book, but it's definitely what I tell people when I ask, and it's definitely up there. Like I just love this book, and if you haven't read it yet, which I feel like you definitely probably have, or if you haven't, you're just not interested in reading it, but if you haven't read it, I would definitely recommend it. It is such a good book. The next question is a guilty pleasure book, and I have two for this one, and I wouldn't say that either of them are really guilty pleasures because I don't feel bad or weird admitting that I like them. I just feel like they're definitely books that have really polar opposite opinions. But that is Magnolia Parks and Tell Me Lies. I will very openly say that I enjoyed both of these books, but they're definitely kind of hated on because they're both super toxic relationships. Magnolia Parks is about a couple that has been together forever and basically they just like can't stay away from each other even though all they do is hurt one another. And I don't even like the couple in this book. I actually would say that I hate the couple in this book, which typically if you hate the couple, it's like, how are you gonna like the book? The writing is just very immersive and very easy to get lost in and just kind of speed read. And that is honestly something that like I love in a book. If I can read a book and just read it and not think about checking my phone and not think about what page number I'm on. Like, I don't know what my cats are doing, but they're being awfully loud. That can really like make a book for me and just make it be so much better because you're not like having to like force yourself to read. Like you almost kind of forget that you're reading. But this is also, I feel like, a book of why I would say it's like my guilty pleasures, because I don't know if I would really recommend this book. It's definitely like an acquired taste, and unfortunately I just think it's an acquired taste that you're not gonna know if you'll enjoy or not until you read it. And then Tell Me Lies is similar in the way that it is a toxic relationship, but in this book you're not supposed to like the couple and you're not supposed to root for them. But this was just kind of the same thing. Like the writing really captivated me. All I wanted to do was read. I remember I read this on a train ride back from New York, and typically anything like that where you say you're gonna read like a plane ride or a train ride or at the beach and you like say you're gonna sit there and read the whole book in one sitting, you want to get on your phone. You don't really want to sit there and read the whole book, and all I wanted to do was read. I remember keeping an eye out for like when my stop was because I was like, I need to finish this. Like it's so good. I feel like the author is the reason why this book is so good. She just makes you care about Lucy so much and you just want to see how her story ends. I don't think I told you what this book is about, but this is about a girl named Lucy and her college relationship and kind of just how it affects her, how it plays out later on in life, and it is just so good. I really loved this book and I would definitely recommend. The next question is a book everyone loved and you didn't, and I hesitated even putting this in here because I haven't finished the book. But that is The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams. I have read this book. I've tried to read this book twice. The first time I got 100 pages into it. The second time I still have my bookmark in, I got 130 pages into it. and both times I hated it. I don't know what it is. Actually, I do know what it is about this book. One, this book is not even 300 pages. Okay, no, it is. It is just 300 pages, 301 pages. It feels like a 600-page book. The first 100 pages feel like you have been sitting there and reading for hours. I also everybody said about how this book was just fluff and like fun, and when I think of the fluff, I think of like The Do-Over or The Sun Is Also a Star, like where it's just kind of like fun and you enjoy the characters. And the one thing that I really hated about this book is it is so clear that the two main characters are in love with each other, and it is so clear that their friendship is inappropriate. Like it's so clear that their friendship is over the line of being a friendship and has crossed into the line of being like inappropriate if they had partners, and they're so unaware, and they like think that it's not wrong. And if I was in a relationship with either one of these people and this is how they were behaving with a friend, I would be like, you're in love with them, you're not in love with me, like you're in love with them. And it really bothered me. I also feel like the main character is just, I don't like the term pick me, I feel like it's kind of mean, but I feel like all she does is hate on the other women in this book. Unless like the girl is just straight up a bitch and mean. Actually, not even then. Like I like it when characters have a little bit more depth and you kind of get to explain why you don't like them. And I feel like this main character really just like tore every other woman in this book apart, and it was just so annoying and so like I don't want to read about that. I get torn apart as a woman enough. I don't need to read about other women getting that way. I just did not like this book. Every time I've DNF'd it, I've told myself that I'll pick it up again, and I think that I just need to come to terms with it. It's not my cup of tea, and that I'm not gonna finish it. I also, this is not a question in Steph's original tag, but I thought it would be fun to add a book that everyone hated and you loved. And for me, that is funny you should ask, basically just because this did not fit any of my other prompts, and I really wanted to put it in here because it is definitely one of my favorite romance books. This was on so many people's most hated books or most disappointing books of 2022. And I think it's because this book was hyped up solely for the cover. Like so many people were hyping this book up and putting it in videos who hadn't read it because the cover was so beautiful, and then they read it and it was just another romance book. But this was the first romance book that I read and I was like, oh, like I actually might like romance books. I liked everything about this book. I feel like I really felt that the characters cared for one another and I was rooting for them to be together. Honestly, one of my favorite romance books, and I would definitely recommend it, even though I feel like so many other people have hated it. The next question is the book that you read the fastest, and this was no debate for me. It was absolutely the Summer I Turned Pretty trilogy. If I wouldn't have had other things to do when I started reading this first book, I would have read all three of them in the same day. I was so enthralled with these books. I just loved them. I also just wanted to shout out the show covers. I feel like they are so stinking cute. I really wish this wasn't on there. I totally get why it is. I just wish that it wasn't, but I love these. I feel like this is what movie covers should be. I love them. I love them more than the regular covers. Definitely read these so fast. Cannot wait to reread them. I'll probably honestly try to reread them in a time where I can read them all in one sitting, just because I feel so like, I don't know, I was just so attached from the very beginning and I just like needed to know what happened, and I sped through these. If you have not read these, I personally love them. They're extremely YA, but they are so fun. They're so nostalgic, perfect summer vibes, and they're gonna take you no time to read. So if you hate them, it's not really a waste of your time. The next question is a book that deserves more hype. This book, I want to say that it has hype because all of the big booktubers have read it. Rachel Catherine's read it, Sarah Caroli's read it, Destiny's read it, Haley's read it, but I feel like it still doesn't have hype, and I'm not really sure why. I feel like Haley was the only person who really raved about this book, and everybody else read it and were like, oh yeah, it's good. And I loved this book, and that is Mary Jane by Jessica Anya Blau. I think why I feel so like, why doesn't this book have more hype, is because when I was reading it, I wasn't so obsessed with it like I was Malibu Rising. I remember reading it and being like, yeah, this is good, like maybe it's slow in some points, but this was one of those books that I thought about this book, I still think about this book all the time. It's just a book that has stuck with me, and I feel like any book like that, like that's what you want. You want to be able to look back on a book and remember that you loved it and remember why you read it. I think we all know like that we can look at books and be like, yeah, I read that, but I seriously, like, I could not tell you the main character's name, couldn't tell you a single plot point, like don't remember a single thing about it. And I feel like when I read a book, like I want it to stick with me, and this book stuck with me so much, and I just feel like it does not have the hype that it deserves. Like I feel like this book has so much depth, and when people read it they're like, oh yeah, it was good, 4 stars, on to the next one. And I just feel like it deserves so much more than that. The next question is a book that is becoming a movie or a TV show, and I feel like you could literally pick just about any book for this question, but I chose One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid because I specifically read this book knowing that there was a movie coming out and I wanted to read the book first. This book literally had me from the very first chapter. I was like enthralled. I will say that I don't really remember a whole lot about it now. I just remember loving it. I read it within 24 hours. It was such a good book. Cannot wait for the movie. I'm very interested to see if the movie does the book justice. And this is about a woman who gets married pretty young, has this great romance, and her husband dies or is presumed dead a year after they get married. Then you fast forward, she kind of moves on with her life. She reconnects with someone that she knew as a kid. They fall in love. She moves on. They get engaged. And then her husband, who was presumed dead, calls her and is like, honey, I'm home. And she kind of has to go through this like battle of who she should choose. And it is such a good book. It's such a beautiful book. It's so well written. I would definitely recommend it. Okay, a book that you reread the most. I found this question to be kind of difficult because I've only really gotten back into reading this or last year, so I wasn't rereading a ton of books just because I had so many books that I wanted to read. One book that I have read a significant amount since like my teenage years is The Purpose of Being a Wallflower. This book just has like stuck with me my whole life. I feel like I love this book. I definitely get like people's beef with this book. I personally love it. I think it is such a beautiful coming of age story. I definitely think that as I get older I may agree with some of the issues that people have with this book, but I don't want it to make me love it any less, so I'm still gonna love it and continue rereading it. A book from a genre you don't typically read. I was obsessed with this book, The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. When I first read it, I was obsessed with it. I think this is classified as horror. I thought it was kind of like a comedy horror, but I think it's classified more as a horror book. Only horror book I've ever read. Absolutely loved it. I definitely need to pick up more from this author. A book that deserves all the hype. I am so excited to talk about this one because I read it in early 2022, so I have not talked about it since like April of last year, and that is My Dark Vanessa. This book, this is like an OG book talk book. I feel like this was super popular almost like 2 years ago now. This book deserves every type of hype that it has gotten. I can't even like get the words out. That's how emotional this book makes me. This book seriously is so good. I absolutely loved it. I went into this not really knowing what it was going to be about. I just found like this was the first book that I read getting back into reading where I was so attached to our main character. I just loved this book. I feel like this is such a beautiful book. I feel like this book is so important. Genuinely, I feel like everybody should read this book, especially men. It's just such an incredible book. Absolutely love it. 10 out of 10 recommend. A book you usually recommend. I would just say literally any Taylor Jenkins Reid book. She is just such a easy author to recommend because I feel like most people can find a book by her that they're intrigued by, that they like. Most people really like her books. I would definitely say that I probably recommend Malibu Rising the most. A book that has your favorite characters. Literally so many of them. Malibu Rising, absolutely obsessed with the siblings. I think there's 4 of them. Obsessed with them. I felt like I was a part of their family. I absolutely loved them. I just feel so connected to those characters. The Summer I Turned Pretty books. The 2 moms, Savannah. I cannot think of what Belly's mom's name is, but those 2 moms chef's kiss. I love them. I feel like I need books and movies and shows specifically about them. They're just like some of the most beautiful characters that I have ever read about. Mary Jane is like a book where there's kind of two casts of characters, and one you kind of dislike and the other one you love. And I just feel like that one cast of characters that you love, you almost just kind of feel like they raised you, because it's a coming of age novel and it just has like some beautiful characters in that book. A book in which you could live in, I guess it would be more of like a universe you wish you could live in, and that for me is definitely the Bridgerton universe. I just feel like this world is so immersive and descriptive, and it just sounds so beautiful and fun and lyrical, and I just love it. I would love to wake up and have a day in the Bridgerton world. It's just such a beautiful world to me. A book you thought you hated but ended up loving. This question, I feel like, again, I didn't really have an answer to it because I don't typically read books that I think I'm going to hate. A book, though, that I ended up loving a lot more than I thought I was going to is definitely Heartstopper. I didn't think I was gonna hate this book. I just feel like everybody who has read these books is like crazy about them and is like, they're so adorable, they're so cute, they're just like so beautiful. And I remember thinking like, I'm sure they'll be fine, but they're not gonna be like show-stopping for me. And they actually are. Like, this book in particular from the series is just so cute. I don't even know how to describe it other than cute, and you get so attached to the characters and so enthralled in the story, and I just really didn't expect that to happen from a graphic novel. But seriously, this book is so good, and when people like rave about it, it really is worth all of the hype that this book has gotten. A book that made you cry. I feel like this is everybody's book that made them cry in this tag. Sorry, I'm a little far away. My back is just really starting to hurt. This book is seriously one of the most heartbreaking books I think I've ever read. I remember I was crying from probably for like the last 100 pages. I'm not even kidding. I don't feel like this is a spoiler that many people would care about it, but I don't really want to quite spoil it. So there's a particular part in this book towards the end where they're in the hospital. It's not for anything bad. I'm really trying to like, so the people who have read this book like know what I'm talking about. And they're in the hospital, but it's not for anything bad. It's more for something happy. And I remember just sobbing. Like, it was so beautifully written, this part of the book. And then when you finish the book, it is such a full circle moment, and it was such a beautiful part in the book, and you don't really realize how much it's going to mean at the end of the book. And I just feel like that is such an underrated part in this book. Obviously this book is very sad at the end, and that's when a lot of people cry, but that's the part where I literally started crying and I did not stop. This book is so good. I was in such a reading slump in February, and I just kept thinking like, I should just pick up this book. I'm sure it'll get me right out. And then the last question is a book that you wish you could reread for the first time. And I really tried not to do duplicate answers, but I just had to. I couldn't help it. I feel like the list of books that I absolutely love and I'm like a die-hard fan for have already been mentioned, so I had to do a repeat. But if I could reread any books for the first time, it would be these two Bridgerton books. I have never been more enthralled and excited and had such a strong urge to read than I was when I read these books. And I feel like I read them so fast that I almost kind of took them for granted. But these books, I remember, I just like loved them. Like how everybody talks about ACOTAR and they're like, I started reading them and I couldn't stop, and I read all of them within a week. That is how I felt specifically about these two books. They're just perfect in my eyes. I love them so much. That was our last question though, guys. So I will have the questions in the description box in case that you want to do this tag. It's honestly so fun because you kind of just get to reminisce about all of the books that you love. I really hope that you guys got a recommendation from this video. I swear to you, all of these books are worth your time. They're all incredible. They're all just like chef's kiss. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. That is the conclusion of this video. I will see you in my next video. My books all just fell. Okay, bye guys.